So you can hear the drumbeats of war, much like in Europe or West Asia. But the question is, will Xi Jinping give the order? Will he decide to invade Taiwan? It's always been his goal. Taiwan is unfinished business from China's civil war. Mao Zedong could not capture it, so Xi Jinping would love to do it. It would immortalize him and secure his legacy. So tonight we're looking at three questions here. One, how difficult would an invasion of Taiwan be? Two, is China ready for it? And three, what is the world's strategy? Let's start with the first question. An invasion would be extremely difficult. Taiwan is not some helpless island. They're armed to the teeth. Just look at the global firepower rankings. Taiwan ranks 24th. They are ahead of NATO allies like Sweden and Canada. And where does China rank? At number 3. But wars are not fought on tables. In the real world, China will face added challenges like geography and weather. They will have to land soldiers in Taiwan, and that means crossing this stretch of water, the Taiwan Strait. It's around 140 kilometers long. It's also very choppy waters, not ideal for an amphibious operation. But let's assume that China beats the elements. Taiwan will still be prepared. Their strategy is called porcupine defense. I'm talking about this animal, porcupine. It has sharp spikes all over its body and tail, so no one dares to attack it. Why? Because they know that the cost will be too high. And that is Taiwan's strategy. They have invested a lot in defense. Under the last president, defense spending increased by 5% every year. As a share of GDP, it's 2.5%. They spend 2.5% of their GDP on defense. We're talking about a variety of defensive weapons like anti-ship missiles, naval mines, landing spikes, and mobile missile launchers. But again, let's assume that China beats all of this. They land on Taiwan shores. Then once more, they would face geography. Taiwan has a lot of rugged mountains. They offer natural protection to the island's regime. And if you reach the cities, it's going to be urban warfare, like what you're seeing in Gaza. So long story short, it won't be easy. Taiwan has prepared and practiced to repel a Chinese invasion. Their way of life depends on it. So expect a tough and bloody fight if it comes to that. Which brings us to the second question. Is China ready for it? Does Xi Jinping have the appetite for war? US officials have made their own assessment. They think that Xi will wait until 2027. By then, he should have enough firepower. But could he strike earlier? And I ask this for a reason. China's growth is losing steam. Their GDP growth has largely stalled. It is expected to be 3.5% by the end of this decade. Same with their population. China's labor force will be shrinking in 2030 by almost 1%. So there are two ways of looking at it. One, it may force Xi Jinping to advance his invasion because he may think now is the time. If this window closes, it may never happen again. That's one way of looking at it. The second option, he may take the advice of Deng Xiaoping. Deng said, hide your strength, bide your time. Xi Jinping may tweak that advice. He may bide his time and rebuild his strength. The Chinese president is not known to be a maverick. So all bets are on delaying the attack. Plus, any invasion would trigger sanctions, and Beijing must prepare for that too. China has almost 1.4 billion people. You need to secure basic resources for them like food and power. Now, Beijing is already stockpiling food grains. Reports say they have rice and wheat for up to 2 years. But energy is a bit tricky. Most of China's fuel and gas comes from friendly nations like Russia and Saudi Arabia. But they're transported in shipping tankers that can be cut off. So China is working on a solution for that. Their Belt and Road project is trying to link West Asia via land. They're also building gas pipelines from Russia. So China needs to tick a lot of boxes here before they invade. They will get one chance at this. Which brings us to the final question. What is the world's strategy? The Americans are at the forefront of it. A US law requires the White House to support Taiwan, but it does not say how. Is it by deploying soldiers, or giving weapons, or simply offering political support? This lack of clarity is called strategic ambiguity. And Joe Biden has stirred this pot many times. He has said that the US will defend Taiwan. His plan is to build alliances. Let me pull up the map for you once again and show you the countries with US bases. You have the Philippines, you have Japan, South Korea and Guam. There are thousands of US soldiers stationed in these bases, and not to mention lots of firepower. So if China invades, the US will be close by, either to intervene directly or to run support operations. And that's the military side of things. But frankly, the US alone won't be enough. We're talking about a very important region. Taiwan supplies 90% of the most advanced semiconductors to the world, 90%. The waters around it are also crucial. It carries around 21% of global trade. So trouble in Taiwan is trouble for the whole world, yet most countries don't seem bothered. We've seen a lot of activism for Palestine, but we haven't seen the same for Taiwan. They don't even have a seat at the United Nations organizations. The first priority is to change that, because China's biggest weapon is the one China policy, and most countries recognize Taiwan as part of China. The one China policy. So these countries may criticize the Chinese invasion, but how can they actively oppose it? Because their own policy is anti-Taiwan, and diluting this policy will be hard. Taiwan could use its chip superpower to woo other countries. It could set up factories or investments abroad. And frankly, that's the only way. For most countries, China is way more important than Taiwan. Until that changes, their policy will not.
Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. South Africa goes to the polls on the 29th of May. I will track the election and bring you ground reports. Is it the end of the road for the African National Congress? And will former President Jacob Zuma stage a dramatic comeback? From elections to climate change, to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost.